Empires don't collapse when flags come down or capitals fall. That's the ending. The real collapse starts much earlier, in places most people never look. It begins when money quietly stops doing what it's supposed to do, when saving feels responsible, but somehow leaves you poorer every year. When nothing seems broken, yet nothing works the way it used to. And by the end of this video, you'll know 3 signals that stage 5 is already active, signals most people mistake for normal life, and you'll understand the first sign that stage 6 is starting. Stage 5 is the moment an empire stops protecting its people and starts protecting itself. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. The promises made in better times become impossible to keep. Debts are too large, obligations too heavy, and someone has to pay. At this stage, governments don't announce failure, they don't admit collapse, they manage it. Slowly, invisibly. They choose policies that look stable on the surface, but quietly transfer the cost onto citizens who trust the system, especially those who did everything right, worked hard, saved consistently, avoided risk. This is where safe savings stop being safe. Collapse doesn't arrive with chaos at first. It arrives with normal headlines, calm markets, and reassuring language. It feels boring, technical, manageable, until one day you realize the money you protected your whole life can no longer protect you. And if you think that sounds dramatic, here is a measurable anchor from modern history. Britain once held the world's reserve currency, and even then, a lifetime of safe money could be reshaped overnight. In 1949, the pound was officially devalued from about $4.03 to $2.80. In 1967, it was devalued again from $2.80 to $2.40. Those are not opinions. Those are numbers. And they are what stage 5 looks like when it stops being theoretical. Every major empire that collapsed followed the same sequence. Not identical in details, but identical in pressure points. The mechanisms change. The outcome does not. The pattern has 7 stages, and once you understand it, you stop arguing with history. Stage 1 is expansion. Power grows faster than discipline. Territory, influence, and commitments multiply. Stage 2 is overextension. The empire promises more than it can sustainably maintain. Stage 3 is monetary distortion. Currency is bent to cover costs that reality no longer can. Stage 4 is debt dependence. Borrowing replaces productivity. Future growth is spent in advance. Up to this point, the damage is mostly hidden. The system still looks strong. Stage 5 is the turning point. This is where the cost moves from the state to the citizen. Savings, wages, and purchasing power absorb the pressure so the system can survive a little longer. Stage 6 is loss of trust. Allies hedge. Trade shifts. The currency's special status erodes. Stage 7 is collapse. Not gradual decline, but rapid failure once confidence breaks. Spain reached it. Britain reached it. The Soviet Union reached it. They did not collapse because they were weak. They collapsed because the pattern does not allow exceptions. Stages 1 through 4 weaken empires. Stage 5 transfers the cost to you. Stage 5 is not collapse. That is why most people miss it. There are no riots, no bank closures, no dramatic announcements. Life looks normal. Markets function. Paychecks arrive. And yet, something fundamental changes. Stage 5 is silent confiscation. Instead of taking wealth openly, the system drains it slowly through inflation, currency dilution, and policies described as stabilizing or necessary. Nothing is officially taken, but everything buys less. Your savings shrink in real terms, while the numbers stay the same. Governments choose this path because the alternatives are worse. Default is visible and politically explosive. Spending cuts cause immediate unrest. Inflation, by contrast, is subtle. It spreads the cost across millions of people without triggering a single moment of outrage. It does not feel like theft. It feels like bad luck. Savings are hit first because they are stationary. They do not fight back. Cash, bonds, pensions, fixed incomes absorb the pressure so the system can keep breathing. Wages try to follow, but they always lag. By the time incomes adjust, prices have already moved again. This is why responsible behavior is punished in Stage 5. You did what you were told, you saved, you planned, and quietly, legally, without headlines, your purchasing power is taken. Stage 5 is not chaos. It is legalized theft done politely. When this pattern reaches Stage 5, it does not destroy speculators first. It destroys savers. That is exactly what happened every time. In Spain, people did not lose everything in battle. They lost it in the monetary system. Silver and gold from the Americas flooded Europe. Prices rose for decades, and Spain leaned on lower trust money as costs exploded. Money still circulated, but the value it carried kept thinning. Families who had saved for decades discovered their wealth could no longer buy what it once did. Their accounts were not emptied. They were hollowed out. In Britain, the damage came through devaluation. After 2 world wars, the pound was weakened again and again. Pensions promised stability. Savings accounts looked intact, but each adjustment erased purchasing power. A lifetime of careful planning bought less food, less energy, less security. Wealth did not vanish. It dissolved. In the Soviet Union, the process was faster, but the result was the same. When the ruble collapsed, bank balances became numbers without meaning. People woke up to find their life savings unable to buy basic necessities, not because they gambled, because they trusted. These were not elites or risk-takers. They were teachers, engineers, retirees, ordinary citizens who followed the rules of their system. And when Stage 5 arrived, the system survived by sacrificing them. When an empire reaches this point, the math leaves no room for choice. Spending cannot be cut fast enough without breaking the system. Entire institutions depend on it. Default would trigger immediate panic, destroy credibility, and end the empire's status overnight. And heavy taxation sparks resistance long before it raises enough money to matter. So governments choose the only option that spreads the pain without setting off alarms. Inflation, currency debasement, financial repression. Not because it is evil, but because it is effective. This approach does not require confrontation. It doesn't demand new laws that frighten the public. It works quietly, automatically. Everyday prices rise while money stays still. The burden is distributed thinly enough that no single moment feels unbearable, yet over time it's devastating. Savings always pay the price, because savers are invisible. They don't protest, they don't riot, they don't shut down cities, they trust institutions, they believe stability will return, and while they wait, their purchasing power is slowly transferred elsewhere. Cash loses value. Bonds fall behind inflation. Pensions are adjusted downward in real terms. Nothing is officially taken, so nothing can be returned. Savings are easy to steal because they don't scream. And once this process begins, it doesn't reverse, it accelerates. Remember this. Stage 5 doesn't look like collapse. It looks normal. That's why it works. Stage 5 always comes with a lull, a moment where everything seems fine again. Markets rise. Headlines talk about resilience and recovery. Savings accounts show higher balances. On paper, people feel richer. The system looks stable, even successful. This is the illusion phase. It's what keeps most people complacent. The numbers go up, but the meaning of those numbers changes. Prices rise faster than wages. Essentials absorb a larger share of income. Housing, energy, food, insurance, healthcare. Each increase feels manageable on its own. Together, they quietly reshape daily life. And here's a critical point. Official inflation is built from an average basket. It can be methodologically consistent and still fail to match your lived reality. Because no one lives on average. People feel the truth at the checkout line, on rent renewals, in insurance premiums, and in shrinking discretionary spending. So people adjust without realizing what's happening. They delay purchases. They downgrade lifestyles. They accept less as normal. Not because they're failing, but because the currency is. This is why Stage 5 is so dangerous. It doesn't feel like collapse, it feels like adaptation. And by the time the illusion breaks, the damage is already done. Your account balance grows. Your life contracts. And most people don't recognize the trade until it's irreversible. This isn't a forecast about the future, it's an observation about the present. By the logic of the pattern, the United States is already in Stage 5. Here is what that means in plain language. For long stretches, safe money has struggled to keep up with the true cost of living, especially after tax and after essentials. Even when some official real yields briefly turn positive, households can still experience Stage 5 if essentials inflate faster than the returns they can realistically access, and if policy incentives keep prioritizing system stability over saver preservation. Debt servicing now consumes a growing share of national revenue. As interest costs rise, the pressure to keep money cheap increases. Higher inflation becomes useful. It reduces the real value of past obligations without the political shock of default. Policy reflects this reality. Cash earns less than inflation. Bonds struggle to keep up. Pensions are recalibrated. Safe assets preserve numbers, not purchasing power. Stability is prioritized over preservation. None of this requires crisis language. The markets still function. The institutions still operate. Confidence hasn't broken. That's exactly why this stage is so often misunderstood. This isn't collapse. It's positioning. The system is adjusting to survive under its own weight, and the adjustment is paid for quietly, not by dramatic failure, but by erosion. The pattern doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself through incentives, and those incentives are already in place. Stage 5 doesn't end the same way for everyone. This is where outcomes begin to diverge. Some people deny what's happening. They trust that things will go back to normal. They keep doing what used to work. Their losses aren't sudden. They are gradual, quiet, and permanent. Others understand the pattern, but only after the pressure becomes impossible to ignore. They react instead of repositioning. By then, options are limited, costs are higher, and time is working against them. Then there is a third group. They don't panic. They don't wait. They recognize the stage for what it is and adjust early. Not because they're smarter, but because they understand how systems behave when they are under strain. This is not about fear, politics, or predicting the exact date of collapse. It is about literacy. Pattern. Literacy. Knowing where you are in the sequence so you don't mistake erosion for stability. Stage 5 is the window where awareness still matters. Before trust breaks, before confidence snaps, before Stage 6 begins and choices disappear. And here is the first sign that Stage 6 is starting. It is not a headline that says reserve currency lost. It is when confidence stops being automatic, when allies hedge more openly, trade quietly shifts, and holding your currency becomes optional instead of necessary. History shows this moment clearly again and again. The pattern does not punish everyone equally. It punishes assumptions. Stage 5 does not destroy everyone. Only those who think savings means safety. And now, the 3 signals I promised. The ones that tell you Stage 5 is already active. First, safe returns preserve account balances, but they lag the lived cost of essentials year after year. Second, policy consistently chooses subtle erosion over a visible reset, protecting system stability even if savers bleed quietly. Third, Life gets narrower even as numbers rise. Your balance grows, but your options shrink. Stage 5 doesn't announce itself. It normalizes itself.